Hi, I'm Seth and you are watching Rodriguez Mystic. I hope everybody is well, and I've decided to do a video review of a new tarot deck that I bought, which is the MaryEl Tarot deck. I've been wanting to make some videos on tarot for a while now, but not really sure how to go about it, because I don't think that I want to actually do tutorials on how to read tarot, just because there are so many out there already, and it's quite a feat to do that as well. I don't think I'd be up for doing that. So I decided to just jump straight in really and review a tarot deck that I've been working with recently. Just to backtrack a little bit, I've been reading tarot now studying and reading tarot for about 16 years. Tarot was one of those subjects that I got straight into trying to study anyway, when my entire kind of journey in witchcraft and magic and spirituality began. So quite typical of a lot of people, when they discover the whole world of the occult, they kind of go out and buy lots of things and kind of they get very enthusiastic and try and do everything all at once. So for me, tarot was actually quite a long, slow, gradual process, because I was still learning lots of other things at the same time. And I have to admit, tarot was never something that I instantly fell in love with, as it is for a lot of people. For me, I think I lacked the confidence, and I was put off by the amount of information that a tarot deck holds. So learning tarot was a very, very long, slow, gradual process, and I've had all kinds of ups and downs as well in my journey with the tarot, because there's been several occasions where I felt completely comfortable. Well, not completely comfortable, but I had moments after learning for a few years where I felt, yeah, I have enough knowledge stored in my head now to actually read for people. And then I'd have times where I'd have a complete memory blank, and I'd feel like I was back to square one again. I mean, now obviously I do read professionally, so I'm comfortable reading now tarot. But that wasn't really until I'd been studying and practicing for probably close to 10 years before I really felt comfortable reading on a professional basis. So over the years I've had a lot of tarot decks. Last year I actually sold quite a few of my tarot decks, because I'm not really a tarot collector per se. I had about 15 to 20 decks, which sounds quite a lot, but a lot of my tarot enthusiast friends have, over 300, some of them. And then I know other friends who are amazing tarot readers who just have the one or two decks. So it really varies. But for me, I had all of these decks, and I kind of took stock of them and was looking out through them last year, and I actually got rid of quite a few, including the decks that were some of my earliest decks. I just got rid of them because I thought I'm not going to use them again, and the artwork didn't really appeal to me that much anyway. So I tend to kind of try and just hold on to decks that I know I'm actually going to use, unless they're absolutely gorgeous and I just want to keep them for the way that they look. So in other words, it's been a long time for me that I've actually found a deck that I've been enthusiastic about, and this deck, the MaryEl Tarot deck, which I'll show you the box. The MaryEl Tarot deck, it had been playing on my mind for quite a while, maybe a year or two before I actually bought it, because I've only had this for about a month. And as with most tarot decks, when you feel drawn to a deck, it's the artwork that speaks to you. And the artwork on these cards really kind of drew me in. It's a little bit different to the style of tarot and the style of artwork that I like. I like a lot of bright colours. As a painter myself, anyone that's seen my artwork will know that I like bright colours, and there are a lot of bright colours in this deck. But then there's a lot of earthy coloured cards as well, and quite a few people have described this deck as being a bit darker in places, but I personally don't think of it as a dark deck. I think of it as heavy, gritty, and very serious, actually. There's quite a solemn tone to this deck, I think. I think it's deep. One of the first things I remember thinking is that the artwork is almost like, if anyone's familiar with the music Dead Can Dance, which is one of my ultimate favourite bands, especially for producing music that is great to use in ritual, a lot of kind of world music inspired sounds that they come up with. They're a very mystical band, actually. It's kind of like the music of Dead Can Dance in art form. That's the best way that I can describe it for me personally. It really makes me think of the kind of vibe of their music for some reason. So I'll go into the deck now. I've got quite a few things I'd like to say about it. So this is the box that it comes in, as I've just shown you. And it has a magnetic catch, so it opens here. And then the book is in here and the deck goes in here. This is the book that it comes with, called Landscapes of the Abyss. It's a very substantial book. And the cards themselves are quite large, and they're very good quality. They have a good gloss on them. They have a really nice Ouroboros, or two Ouroboros on the back. So they're very pretty, and I'm going to start by showing you some images first, before I talk about the actual symbolism. So I'll just begin here. The Magician. I'm not going to show all the cards. There's some good reviews of the MaryEl Tarot on YouTube. Good reviews of tarot decks in general. That will actually show you every single card in the deck. So I'm not going to do that. This is the Magician with his Metatron. Is it Metatron's Cube? I think that symbol's called. I really like this card. This is probably my ultimate favourite card of the deck. Is actually the World. It makes me think of really cosmic star goddesses like Nut from the Egyptian pantheon. The High Priestess card, actually, I must admit, this is one of the cards that I don't particularly love, which is very unusual for me because a lot of, well, my close friends know that the High Priestess is one of my favourite cards, and usually I love the High Priestess card in any deck that I've seen. I usually, I'll go for a deck because I like the imagery on their particular version of the High Priestess. But this High Priestess doesn't really speak to me that much. I mean, I like the colours and the symbolism, but there's just something about that card that doesn't really hold much appeal to me. It's like a pregnant woman with a strange version of the Tree of Life on her stomach. The Hermit. I love the colours on the Hermit. Quite an aquatic looking hermit. And Justice. This is cool. This is the Egyptian goddess Mart. The Sun and the Moon in this deck are very either Aztec or Incan or Mayan. I get all of those cultures are all just completely confused in my head. So yeah, from that kind of part of the world, Incan, Aztec, Mayan. Yeah, so that was interesting because you don't really see. I haven't seen that culture represented in many tarot decks, so to go with that for the Sun and the Moon I thought was quite interesting. Just a few more cards that I like. The Eight of Cups, I think this is a really beautiful card. Just a very innocent, pure looking girl with wearing lion skins. There's a lot of lions in this deck, and I like lions, so I'm down with that. The Judgment card, nice phoenix. And I'll show you these cards just because these were to me they were the most bizarre when I initially looked through it the first time. So the Knight of Wands is some kind of beaver guy with a lightning bolt on his hand. Seven of Cups is some kind of wolf. I think that has quite a nice vibe to it, that card. I like the simplicity of it. Some of the images are really simple, like this one, and then others have a lot more going on, a lot more detail. And the Seven of Wands. I'm also showing these cards just to show you how kind of off the beaten track the artist goes with some of her cards, because as you've probably noticed, there's quite a lot of cards where there is absolutely no traditional symbolism of that card in the imagery at all. You know, like the Seven of Wands, there's no wands there. It's a wolf's face. Pretty random. Yeah, I don't really know where to begin with this. There's a lot that I want to say, but basically, there's quite a strong emphasis on the Kabbalah and alchemy, or a lot of people say that. But there's actually cultural influences from all over the place in this deck. A lot of the people, there are people of all different races. You know, there's African influences. There's a couple, or at least one reference from Norse mythology that I can think of offhand. There's a lot of biblical stuff, a lot of angels, alchemical and Kabbalistic symbolism. The book, basically the author Marie White talks about how the tarot is a journey of the soul, and she talks about the alchemical process that the soul goes through, like the soul's journey, and that's the kind of vibe she's going for. There's a lot of references to biblical mythology. It's kind of a hard one to place, because basically this deck is very unique, I'll have to say that to begin with. One of the nice things I like about this deck is that the artwork and the book, the whole thing is just the product of one person. So it's not a case where an author has had a vision or an image in their head of how they would like a deck to be, and then they've hired an artist to do the artwork. The whole thing was done by one person, Marie White. And I think it's the first time I've ever worked with a deck like that, and I like that. You know, there's something kind of holistic, or there's something kind of wholesome about it. The deck feels very much like it is the creation of one person. It's very unique, and whilst there is a lot of Kabbalah in here, I wouldn't say there's loads of Kabbalah, but there's a reasonable amount of Kabbalistic symbolism going on. But she's taken traditional ideas and images and really made them her own. And in some places she's wildly kind of gone off and done her own thing and switched things around a lot. So it's very, very personal to her in a way. Yeah, it definitely has its own take on things. This is a real kind of deck that kind of goes outside the box and really explores and does its own thing. The deck actually took over 10 years to make, so you know that a lot of work has gone into this. All of these paintings were done by Marie White, as I just said. She did all the artwork, and they're all oil paintings, which is impressive, I think. So you know that this is a deck that a lot of love and probably blood, sweat and tears has gone into. You know, it's not one of these, it's not a gimmicky deck. This is the complete opposite of a gimmick deck. You know, where somebody just comes up with a theme for a tarot deck and they just bang out the images. This isn't a deck that's been made on Photoshop in 2 weeks. You know, this is a deck it's heavy. Yeah, it's got a lot of her personality in here, I think. The way that the book is written is kind of like a very, very poetic bohemian stream of consciousness. You have to be in the right frame of mind, I think, to read this book. It's written in a very mystical and artistic, bohemian, flowy kind of way. Yeah, it's not incredibly straightforward, and yet in some ways it is, because she does give, at the end of each description for each card, see if I can show you in the book, she gives some keywords at the end of her spiel about the card. She gives some keywords, then the keywords for the reversals. I personally don't read reverse cards, I don't work with that. And then she gives the traditional divinatory meanings according to the Rider-Waite system, and she'll just give a few keywords again there. The whole deck is kind of unpredictable. There's a strong unpredictable vibe about this deck. You can't get at least, maybe it's just because I'm very new to it, but you can't get instantly comfortable with this deck. There's so many twists and turns and surprises. You know, the artwork itself really changes in style. Probably because it was done over such a long period of time. She may have been exploring, Marie White may have been exploring different styles of painting. She may have evolved her style for some of the images. I'm kind of all over the place in my head with this because, and that's the kind of the way that the book comes across to me. You know, some of the card descriptions will be several pages long, others will just be a couple of paragraphs. On one occasion that I can think of, at least one, but I think this may happen with more than one card, she gives the description, and I can't remember the card, unfortunately, but she gives a description for the card, and then several cards later in the book, she'll be giving the description of another card, and then refer back to another card, and explain a massive chunk of the symbolism in that description, which, to be honest, that's not really very helpful. You know, if you're learning with the deck, this is why you need to read the book from start to finish, and you probably would benefit from reading it from start to finish several times, to be honest. Yeah, you know, it's not helpful to discover more about the symbolism of a card later on in the deck if you are just treating the book as a go-to reference as you're laying out the cards and getting used to it. So you do need to read the book from start to finish. Other confusing things are, you know, as I've said, there are a lot of the cards for the suits, for example, don't even feature the wands or the swords or the cups or the pentacles. They don't feature them at all. Other things that are confusing is that sometimes some of the symbolism or imagery in a card won't really be discussed at all in the book, or she'll refer to another symbol or another deity or concept as a way of discussing the symbolism in the deck rather than making a direct reference to the symbolism that's there. So, for example, there might be an image of an angel, which is definitely a Hebrew, you know, part of Hebrew mythology or biblical mythology, if you like. But then she'll refer to Greek mythology in order to really expand on it and explain what it is. And then there are other very obvious symbols which aren't mentioned at all. So, to be honest, it is a little bit of a... It's not straightforward, but I definitely think it's something worth persevering with. Something that I've noticed a lot of people have said about this deck, because I've read a few reviews about it after I've been, you know, getting accustomed to it. Something that quite a few readers have said is that this is a deck that you kind of want to curl up alone with and just use for yourself. I've noticed quite a few people have said that it's not the kind of deck they really want to use with clients, you know, reading for other people. I think it may be perhaps because a lot of these reviews are written by people who haven't been using the deck for very long. But I think it's more, it's also definitely to do with the fact that because the cards are so deep, this is a real soul-searching kind of deck, and the descriptions and the analysis for each card is very deep, and it's focused very much on a deep, soul-searching kind of level. So these aren't the kind of cards that I can really imagine myself using for more mundane questions. This is a kind of navel-gazing deck. You know, this is really good. I mean, it's good if you like using the tarot as a tool of self-discovery and you know, really going really deep with issues and looking at what's behind the surface, and you like using the tarot as a psychological tool for self-discovery, then it would be great for that, definitely. I'll show you some more cards. These two cards are good examples of, if anybody likes using tarot, if anybody's interested in using tarot for astral doorways, you know, where you kind of meditate on the card, you visualise it, and then you go into the imagery of the card and you use it kind of, well, you use it as an astral gateway. If you don't know what that means, there are, you know, look it up. But yeah, with some of the cards are great for astral doorways. This one, the Four of Cups, I absolutely love this card. This card really drew me in. And that is a perfect kind of setup for an astral doorway, because you could just go down that path and into those mountains on a journey. And there's a monastery here on the side of the cliff. Yeah, there's a real atmosphere to this card, the Four of Discs. And fours actually have a big significance for me, so I think that may be another reason why I like this. But yeah, I think something like that is an awesome image for an astral doorway. And the Nine of Swords, in a lot of traditional, well, in Rider-Waite derived tarot decks, the Nine of Swords is usually quite an unpleasant card, but this is like, wow, you know, this is all about how amazing the soul is. It's, from what I remember, this card is about the kind of the bright spark that's within everyone. It's our full potential. But yeah, if you look here, there's a city, there's I think a guy on a horse entering the city then down there, and then there's the Egyptian goddess Hathor up here. It's, you know, there's a lot going on. And she really does, the author really does have her own take on stuff. So it's definitely very interesting. I think this is the kind of deck that anyone who's really enthusiastic about tarot, I think this is a deck that actually everybody should have. If you're really enthusiastic about tarot and you enjoy collecting decks, I think that this is definitely one for your collection because it's so unique. It's also the kind of deck that I remember someone, I can't remember her name now, on YouTube, but I watched her video review of this deck and she said something that I thought I'd been thinking as well. This is one of those decks that really commands respect because the images are so beautifully stylized and such high quality, and because you can tell that the symbol is, there's so much going on in these cards, they're so deep. It's a deck that commands respect. And it's a deck that you really think, okay, I really need to sit down and take my time with this. It's not a deck that you can just whip out on your first purchase and start using. It's a deck that you really need to kind of, you really feel like you're approaching the symbolism of these cards. You have to really take your time learning and trying to understand what the hell is going on in some of these cards. Some of the images as well, I've found that what I do is my point of reference, because like a lot of tarot readers, my go-to deck is the Rider-Waite, and when I think tarot, I think the Rider-Waite deck. So what I do when I'm learning or trying to get accustomed to a new deck is I get my Rider-Waite deck out and I put them side by side, so each card. And I remember, for example, with the Seven of Wands, after looking at the traditional Rider-Waite image of the Seven of Wands, and this happened with quite a few cards, I could see in a completely roundabout way why the artist chose this image, and how it's almost like it's the flip side of the same coin, and it's a completely different way of expressing the same kind of vibe that card represents. I'll show you some more cards. The aces are each the holy creatures of the cherubim. The Ace of Swords, the eagle-headed being, the lion-headed angel, the bull-headed angel, and the more humanoid-looking angel. Those are the holy creatures that you see in the Rider-Waite deck in the World card. You know, in each corner there's a head of a human, a lion, eagle, and ram, or bull, sorry. Yeah, so I love these ace cards, by the way. The Ace of Discs, Ace of Wands, and the Ace of Swords. And again, I remember with the Ace of Discs, as I've just said, these images are inspired by the four holy creatures, or the cherubim, that are like angels that sit on flanked either side of the throne of God in Kabbalistic imagery and symbolism. And yet in the book, Marie White, I don't even think she mentions this, But she talks about this card, for example, by going into all the mythology about the Minotaur from Greek mythology. So you see what I mean? She's kind of mixing and matching symbols. She's taken something which is from Hebrew symbolism, an angel, and then she's gone off on a whole kind of Greek mythology, Minotaur analysis of the card. You know, she really mixes and matches things. You know, and there's references to all kinds of mythologies and cultures in the book, but there is a bigger emphasis, I think, on biblical, mystical Christian, Gnostic Christianity and alchemical symbolism. It's kind of all over the place, but it's really unique. I'll show you some more cards. The Queen of Swords. Again, there's no image of a queen on there. There's two ravens and an eye. And these ravens are actually the ravens of the Norse god Odin. So, you know, there's no queen symbolism there at all. But she's gone on her very unique way of expressing the symbolism or energy of a card. And she has chosen to take the symbolism of the ravens of the god Odin, and she talks about them a little bit for this card, but this is the Queen of Swords, so it's something that comes from a king, and she's using that to express the meaning of the Queen of Swords. The Eight of Swords, I think, is another good example of a card that could be used as an astral doorway. So, you know, like a path leading up to a tower. I'll show you a few more cards. The Knight of Discs. Again, that's a little boy, so, you know, it's not traditional at all to use children to represent the knights. You would usually use someone a little bit more mature. But the little boy in this is actually the Buddha. It's actually Prince Siddhartha Gautama. You know, she's using his story for the Knight of Discs. Queen of Wands. I love the Queen of Wands. The Queen of Wands is one of my favourite kind of catchphrases in my head when I think Queen of Wands with tarot is that she's the witch of the tarot. One of my best friends told me that, and I love that because, you know, if you think about the traditional Rider-Waite image of the Queen of Wands, she has a black cat, a magic wand, and she represents a lot of qualities that I think correspond to the idea of the witch. And we've kind of got that with this card again. So in a way, this card is more like a traditional Queen of Wands to me, personally. But she talks here about the Queen of Wands being like a shaman, witch-type figure, and I liked that. I like the fact she's got Egyptian-style makeup on, and she also kind of looks a bit like a Venus of Willendorf fertility goddess figure. I quite like that image. Four of Cups. That's a beautiful painting. No cups in the image, but a beautiful image nonetheless. Nine of Wands. There's a lot of tigers and lions in this deck, as I've mentioned before. I think that's really beautiful. Strength. I love the Strength card. That's a good example of one of the cards that I didn't have to think much about at all. As soon as I saw this, I could understand why it was Strength. You know, that's actually not... That's a good example of a card that's not going off the beaten track as much as some of her other ones do. Knight of Cups. King of Wands. If I remember correctly, this is inspired by the Sumerian god Shamash. Queen of Cups, Nicki Minaj. Totally looks like Nicki Minaj to me. And Temperance. Again, with Temperance, I could understand how that would be Temperance, you know, looking at that. Because it's the combination of water and fire. Yeah. I'm trying to think of other patterns that happen in the cards. All of the sixes are archangels, and they actually feature the sigils of the archangels according to, I can't remember, it's on the top of my head, the according to that system where magicians come up with a signature sigil for an angel or a being, and it's drawn out over the rosy cross image, if anyone's familiar with that. So the symbol I'm talking about is, if you see here, this is the Archangel Michael, Six of Wands. This image on his forehead, this is a magical seal that is created when you trace the name, you connect up the letters that make the name of the angel, but you do it over the symbol of the rosy cross, if you're familiar with that symbol. So yeah, Six of Wands is Michael, Six of Cups is Gabriel, Six of Swords is Raphael, and Six of Discs is Uriel. And as I've said, all different skin tones appear in here, and races, and different animals and creatures and mythical beasts. It's a very, very interesting deck. I instantly loved this deck when I got it, and I knew that it was special and that I was going to really take my time with this. Then kind of halfway through the book I got a little bit frustrated in the way that it's written. I'm not really criticising it, it's just... it could have been written in a slightly more straightforward manner, but I understand why she's written it that way. When you read it, you just think, this woman is such an artist, you know, she's a real bohemian, flowy, poetic bohemian artist, writes in a big stream of consciousness. She makes references to all kinds of different mythologies, to, you know, Kabbalah, alchemy, I Ching, Taoism, Hindu concepts, Buddhism, Gnostic Christianity, Judaism, Norse mythology, Aztec mythology, all kinds of stuff. She has sometimes the most random quotes in there from sacred texts or from philosophers. At other times she will give quotes, she'll quote poetry but not give any references to where that poetry comes from or who's written it or whether she wrote it herself or what, you don't know. No, it's definitely a very, very fascinating deck, and it's something I'm going to look forward to using a lot more, and I'm going to be using it, which is a good piece of advice with any new deck that you buy, is to draw cards from the deck every single day, at least one, but doing a 3-card reading is something that she recommends in here actually. The spreads are actually quite straightforward, that's actually kind of practical and straightforward. She recommends doing a 3-card reading each day, card for within, without and advice. So within talks about how your day is going to go for you internally in your head, how you're going to be feeling. Without is just referring to your environment, what kind of situation you're going to be in, what's going to be going on in your day. And then advice is just the advice card as to what's the best card to focus on to get you through the day. Yeah, so I'm going to be doing a lot of work with that. This isn't a deck that I can see myself using to read for other people at least for a year, at least, if ever. I don't know. But, you know, for a deck that you want to treat yourself to, that has gorgeous imagery, that's deep, and that will really help you looking at matters from a very, very psychological, soul-searching angle, this is definitely great. So it's great for a tool of self-discovery, and really going within. It's the kind of deck that you'd like to curl up with in winter, you know, and do some real kind of personal in-depth work with. And I think that meditating on these images would be very interesting, and using them as astral doorways, as I've mentioned. This is the Lovers, interesting take on the Lovers. The Hierophant is a little bit creepy. The Empress, again, another one of my favourite cards. I have this whole kind of goddess vibe. I like the feminine-y, goddessy cards like the High Priestess and the Empress. The Empress I don't love either. I think it's okay, and that's quite a different style to a lot of the other cards. 3 of Discs I love. Sorry, I'm really waffling on here, but it's not the kind of deck that I can just give a few opinions about, and I think it's because of the way that the deck is designed. It's kind of all over the place, but very interesting. This is the Death card, because I know a lot of you morbid people love to check out the Death card in tarot decks. The Star has a nice unicursal hexagram on there. The colours in the Star, for me, that's too fiery, but I can deal with it because it is a beautiful picture. But yeah, the Star for me has to be, you know, have lots of blues and nice shimmery images, and that's like just way too fiery, but I understand it, you know, and I like it as an image, so I can get used to that. The Tower, it's more abstract. The Devil is actually really pretty. It's purple, because I like purple. The Fool. And last card I'll show you is the Queen. The Five of Swords. I think that's Lilith. I could be wrong, but there's lots of owls on there, so it automatically makes me think of Lilith. So yeah, I hope that I have demonstrated how unique this deck is and how interesting it is. And if you are looking for a deck that you'd really like to treat yourself to, it's a little bit more expensive than your average deck, only a little bit. I actually bought it because I was given some Amazon vouchers, and I thought, right, this is a perfect excuse to buy this deck now, because I'm not spending my own money, it's a present. So yeah, definitely a very good deck to have if you are a tarot enthusiast and you like to collect tarot decks. This is definitely one that you're going to want to have in your collection, I feel, because it's so goddamn special and unique, and because so much work has gone into it. I also would definitely recommend this as a deck if you are looking for something that you can really build up a relationship with and explore and spend years to come with. This is definitely a deck that you can get a lot of value out of using it on a solitary basis. If anybody watching this has used it to actually read for other people, I would be quite interested to know what your thoughts are on that. Yeah, I think I've waffled on long enough now, but I do really like this deck. I know I've had a few criticisms of it, but the criticisms are nothing compared to all of the gorgeous images and the depth of this deck. I feel like I'm really just at the very, very beginning of my journey with this deck. So that's the MaryEl Tarot. I hope you enjoyed my review. If you have the deck yourself, if you agree or disagree with anything I've said, feel free to comment and let me know. Until next time, I shall see you later, and have a good Lammas as well, anyone who celebrates. Take care. Bye.